Welcome to Module 5. I must say you have done very well so far. We have 2 more modules to go, so hold tight and let's continue. Imagine Dia, our journalist, is staring at the dashboard she built in Module 4. She notices one number immediately. Bangladesh spends 2.44% of GDP on health, the lowest in the Asia-Pacific region. But Dia pauses for a moment and asks herself, is that the full story? Is that an insight? Not quite. A finding tells you what is happening, an insight tells you what it means, and more importantly, what it suggests you should actually do. There is a real gap between those two things. Closing that gap, that is what this unit is about. So let us take that Bangladesh number, layer something on top of it, and see where it leads. Bangladesh, lowest health spender in the region. Maternal mortality at 327 per 100,000 live births. At first, Dia thinks the story is straightforward. Low spending, poor outcomes. But when she layers the health system responsiveness score you built in Module 4 on top, suddenly the picture changes. Bangladesh scored 6.4 out of 10. That is actually quite solid. There is a sense of strong community accessibility and acceptability. The communities trust the services they can reach. So the story becomes more interesting. Bangladesh is not simply underfunding a weak health system. In some ways, it is a system that has learned to cope despite limited funding. Community delivery is helping fill part of the gap, which means the real question changes. It moves from why does Bangladesh spend so little to why, despite strong community delivery, does maternal mortality remains this high? That shift from finding to question to insight is exactly what we are practicing in this unit. Now, if we see India, it's a different story, and in some ways a more puzzling one. Health spending at 3.55% of GDP, still in the bottom 10, but higher than Bangladesh. Maternal mortality at 247 per 100,000 and a responsiveness score of 5.8, where the community health network gives decent accessibility, but accountability scores low. This is where Dia starts questioning the obvious explanation. India has more resources than Bangladesh in absolute terms, and yet the maternal mortality gap between the two is smaller than you might expect. The interview evidence from the qualitative data gives us a clue that services exist, but coordination between community health workers and district facilities break down at the moments when it matters the most. So the India insight might be something like this. The challenge is less about the absence of services and more about the gaps between them. In other words, it is as much a coordination problem and accountability challenge as it is the funding one. And then there is Vietnam, not in the bottom 10 spenders. Life expectancy in Southeast Asia sits at 70.21 years. Compare that to South Asia's 67.82, and a nearly 3-year gap starts to feel significant. Responsiveness score of 7.1, highest of our 3 countries. What does Vietnam suggest? Something the quantitative data alone would not have shown us. Vietnam spends moderately and delivers relatively well. The qualitative evidence points towards a structured commune health center system that builds local accountability close to where people actually live. The model appears to matter as much as the money. The Vietnam insight, how a health system is organized, may be just as important as how much it spends, and that is a genuinely different kind of recommendation. Now we have 3 insights, 3 countries, 3 different stories hiding inside what looked at first glance like similar data. Together, they create something insightful. There is some tension that we can observe. Bangladesh has community reach but lacks accountability. India has more resources but struggles with coordination. Vietnam organizes well but at a different scale and context. That tension is not a problem to resolve. It is the material that keeps a recommendation honest. That stops it from being too neat, too simple. Now, it is time to move from watching to doing. In the next video, we sit with Dia and build one full insight statement template live on screen. Bangladesh first, then India, and Vietnam are yours. If you have not downloaded the template yet, the link is just below the video. Open it before you press play on video 2.